They thought I was just an old black woman who cleaned hospital floors for 40 years. They had no idea I owned the building where they lived. My name is Lorraine Washington. I'm 63 years old, and 3 days ago I sat in a lawyer's office in downtown Nashville, signing documents that would change everything. My hand didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. I looked Attorney Beverly Thompson straight in the eye and said, "Make sure it's ironclad. I don't want any loopholes." She nodded, her expression a mixture of professional composure and something else. Respect, maybe. Or pity. I didn't need either. "Mrs. Washington," she said carefully, "are you absolutely certain about this? Once we file these documents, there's no going back. Your son—" "My son," I interrupted, my voice steady as stone, "made his choice. Now I'm making mine." I thought about the phone call I'd overheard 3 nights before. I was staying at my son Terrence's apartment in New York, sleeping on their living room couch, because as my daughter-in-law Sienna had explained with that tight smile of hers, the guest room is being renovated. I'd flown up to see my grandson Jordan for his 2nd birthday, spending money I'd saved from my cleaning job, because Terrence said they were too tight on cash to buy me a ticket. It was 11 o'clock at night. I was supposed to be asleep, but I've always been a light sleeper. 40 years of waking up at 4:30 in the morning will do that to you. I heard Terrence's voice drifting from the bedroom, low and urgent. Then Sienna's, sharper, more insistent. I should have put in my earplugs. I should have turned over and gone back to sleep. But something in Terrence's tone, something guilty and defensive, made me sit up and listen. "Baby, I know," he was saying, "but she's my mother. I can't just—" "Can't just what?" Sienna's voice cut through. "Terrence, we're drowning here. $60,000 in debt." 60. Your job pays well, but not well enough to cover Jordan's daycare, our rent, and your student loans. Meanwhile, your mother is sitting on almost $2 million in assets. My breath caught. They'd been calculating my worth. "She worked hard for that money," Terrence said, but his voice was weak, wavering. "And she's 70 years old." 63, I whispered to myself in the darkness. "And living alone in a 4-bedroom house she doesn't need," Sienna continued. "Terrence, we're not asking her to give us everything. Just help, real help. Maybe she could transfer one of those rental properties to us, or co-sign on a loan, or God, I don't know. Act like she cares about her only grandchild's future." There was a long silence. Then Terrence spoke, and what he said broke something inside me that I didn't even know could still break. "You're right. She's always been controlling. With her money, with me. Maybe it's time I stopped asking and started taking what's rightfully mine. I'm her only child. It's all going to me eventually anyway." That's when I knew. My son, the boy I'd raised alone after his father died, the young man I'd sacrificed everything for, was planning to take my life's work. Not inherit it, not receive it with gratitude when I was gone. Take it, now, while I was still alive. I didn't cry that night. I didn't confront them the next morning. I kissed Jordan goodbye, told Terrence and Sienna I had to get back to Nashville for a doctor's appointment, and caught the first flight home. Then I called Beverly Thompson. "Mrs. Washington?" Beverly's voice pulled me back to the present. She slid the final document across her desk. "This is the last one. Your signature here, and we're done." I signed my name, Lorraine Marie Washington, in the same careful cursive my mother had taught me 70 years ago. When I set down the pen, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power. Not the kind of power that comes from money, though Lord knows I'd earned every dollar. Not the kind that comes from fear or anger. This was the power of a woman who'd finally stopped making herself small to make others comfortable. The power of a woman who'd learned at 63 years old that sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones you loved first. My son wanted my money. I was about to teach him what real wealth looks like. Let me take you back. Not to that painful night in New York, but to the beginning. To 1985, when everything was different. When Terrence was just a dream Robert and I whispered about in the darkness of our tiny apartment on Jefferson Street. Robert Washington was the kindest man I ever knew. We met at a church picnic in 1982. I was 21, working as a secretary at a dental office, and he was 25, an electrician with the steadiest hands and the warmest smile. He wasn't flashy, didn't make grand promises, but when Robert looked at you, you felt seen, really seen. We got married in 1983 in that same church, with my mother's homemade lemon cake and Robert's cousin singing Ave Maria slightly off key. We didn't have much. I made $300 a week. Robert made $450, but we saved every penny we could, putting it in a coffee can under our bed because we didn't trust banks back then. Not after what had happened to my uncle during the savings and loan crisis. By 1985, we had $12,000. It had taken us 3 years. "Lorraine," Robert said one Sunday morning, spreading the classifieds across our kitchen table, "I think we're ready." "Ready for what?" He pointed to a listing. "To buy our own place." The house was in a neighborhood called Bordeaux, North Nashville. 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, built in 1952. The asking price was $45,000. When we went to see it, my heart sank. The roof leaked. The floors were warped. The kitchen cabinets hung at odd angles, but Robert saw something different. He walked through each room with his electrician's eye, touching the walls, examining the wiring, testing the water pressure. "The bones are good, Lorraine," he said. "Everything else we can fix." So we bought it. Put down our $12,000, every cent we'd saved, and took out a mortgage for $33,000 at 11% interest. I'll never forget signing those papers, my hand cramping from gripping the pen so tight. We were terrified. We were hopeful. We were home. Robert spent every weekend for the next 2 years fixing that house. He rewired the electrical system himself, taught himself plumbing from library books. We stripped wallpaper together, painted walls, refinished floors. My mother came over every Saturday with fried chicken and potato salad, and we'd work until our backs ached. By 1987, that house was beautiful, worth maybe $60,000 by then. And that's when Robert had his next idea. "Baby," he said, showing me another listing, "what if we did it again?" This time it was a smaller place in East Nashville, a 2-bedroom bungalow that needed even more work than our first house. The owner was desperate to sell. He was moving to Atlanta for a job and needed to close fast. He'd take $30,000. We didn't have $30,000, but our first house had built up equity. We took out a home equity loan for the down payment, and Robert's brother co-signed on the mortgage. By 1988, we owned 2 properties. We lived in one and rented the other for $600 a month, which covered most of that second mortgage. I was pregnant with Terrence by then, working through morning sickness, coming home to paint bedroom walls in the rental between tenant move-outs. Robert would rub my swollen feet and tell me about his dreams. "Someday," he'd say, "we're going to own 10 of these, 20. Our son is going to grow up knowing that Black folks can build wealth, that we can own things, that we don't have to rent our whole lives from people who don't look like us." Terrence was born in July 1990, 7 pounds, 9 ounces, with Robert's nose and my stubborn chin. I'd never felt love like that before, so fierce it scared me, so complete it felt like my heart lived outside my body now, in this tiny, perfect person. Robert was the most devoted father. He'd wake up with Terrence at night so I could sleep, change diapers without complaining, built a crib from scratch, sanded and painted it a soft yellow because we didn't know if we were having a boy or girl. We were happy, not wealthy, but comfortable, building something. Then in 1992, we bought our 3rd property, a duplex in Inglewood. Robert had gotten a promotion. He was supervising a whole crew now, making decent money. I'd gone back to work part-time at a different dental office, and my mother watched Terrence during my shifts. This duplex was our smartest investment. We rented both sides, $1,200 a month total, and the mortgage was only $800. Real cash flow, real wealth building. Robert died in 2008, a heart attack at 51 years old. No warning. He'd been at work, rewiring a commercial building downtown when he collapsed. They said he was gone before the ambulance arrived. Terrence was 17. I was 46. And suddenly, I was drowning. The life insurance, $340,000, saved us. It sounds like a lot, and it was, but I was smart about it. I didn't buy a new car or take a vacation or do any of the things grieving people do to feel better for a little while. I paid off the mortgage on our primary home completely, paid down the other 2 mortgages by half, put $100,000 in a high-yield savings account for Terrence's college. Then I went back to work. Full-time. 2 jobs, actually. I started cleaning at St. Thomas Midtown Hospital at 5 in the morning, mopping floors, scrubbing toilets, wiping down patient rooms. It wasn't glamorous. Some nights I'd come home with my knees aching so bad I could barely climb the stairs. But it paid $16 an hour with benefits, and hospitals don't close. Steady work. In the afternoons, I worked reception at a medical clinic. Answered phones, scheduled appointments, filed insurance claims. Another $12 an hour. I did this for 17 years. Between 2008 and 2025, I bought 1 more property, a small commercial building on Nolensville Pike that I rented to a hair salon. I never touched Terrence's college fund except to pay his tuition. I lived on my salary and put every extra dollar back into real estate. By the time I turned 60, I owned my primary home, paid off, worth $320,000. 3 rental properties, total value $580,000. Total remaining mortgages, $180,000. 1 commercial building, worth $420,000. Mortgage, $120,000. Savings and investments, $580,000. Net worth, approximately $1.8 million. Robert's dream had come true. I'd built it without him. For Terrence. For us. I'd worked myself to the bone, and I'd never regretted a single day of it. Because I believed that someday my son would understand, that he'd appreciate the sacrifice, that he'd honor what his father and I had built. I was so naive. Terrence was a good student, not brilliant, but hard-working. He graduated high school with a 3.6 GPA and got accepted to the University of Chicago's engineering program, the same field his father had loved, just in a different way. Robert had worked with his hands. Terrence would work with his mind, designing the buildings Robert would have wired. I was so proud the day we dropped him off at college, moved him into his dorm, helped him set up his tiny desk, met his roommate. When it was time to leave, Terrence hugged me tight and whispered, "I won't let you down, Mom. I promise." College cost $47,000 a year. Times 4 years, $188,000. His scholarship covered $20,000. I paid the rest. Every semester, without fail, I'd wire the tuition payment from my savings account. I never told Terrence the exact amount. I didn't want him to feel guilty or pressured. I'd just say, "It's handled, baby. You focus on your studies." He called me every Sunday night during his freshman year. We'd talk for an hour about his classes, his professors, the friends he was making. He sounded happy, excited about the future. "Mom," he said during one of those calls, "I met this girl. Her name is Sienna. She's in my structures class. She's really something." I smiled, stirring the pot of soup on my stove. "Tell me about her." "She's an architecture major, really smart. Her family's from New York. Her dad's an architect, too, like a famous one. He designed that new museum in Manhattan." Something in his voice had changed. A kind of awe, like he was impressed by her pedigree in a way that made me slightly uneasy. But I pushed the feeling aside. "She sounds wonderful, honey. I can't wait to meet her." But I didn't meet her. Not during sophomore year, not during junior year. Terrence always had an excuse. She'd gone home for break. She was studying abroad. She was busy with a project. I started to wonder if she was real. Then, senior year, he brought her home for Thanksgiving. Sienna Brooks was beautiful. Tall, slender, with natural hair in tight coils and skin like polished mahogany. She wore clothes that looked expensive, even though they were simple. A cashmere sweater, tailored jeans, leather boots. She had her father's business card printed on thick cream cardstock. Sienna Brooks, architectural designer. "It's so nice to finally meet you, Mrs. Washington," she said, shaking my hand. Her grip was firm, professional, like I was a client, not her boyfriend's mother. "Please call me Lorraine." "Of course, Mrs. Washington." She didn't call me Lorraine, not once during that entire visit. I cooked a full Thanksgiving spread: turkey, dressing, collard greens, mac and cheese, sweet potato pie. Sienna ate small portions and complimented everything politely. "This is lovely. You're very talented in the kitchen." Talented in the kitchen. Like I was the help. Terrence was different around her. More careful. He watched her reactions, adjusted his behavior based on her subtle cues. When I told a story about him as a little boy, how he used to insist on wearing his Superman cape to church, she laughed. But it was that polite laugh people give when they're not really amused. Terrence immediately changed the subject. After they left, I sat at my kitchen table and cried. Not because I disliked Sienna. I didn't know her well enough to dislike her, but because I could feel my son pulling away, reshaping himself to fit into her world. A world where mothers like me didn't quite belong. Still, I told myself it was just adjustment. Young love. They'd grow together, and eventually she'd see me as family. They graduated in 2012. Terrence got a job at a structural engineering firm in New York. Good salary, $75,000 to start. Sienna got hired at a prestigious architecture firm, $85,000. They moved in together in an expensive neighborhood in Brooklyn. Rent, $3,000 a month. For the first year, Terrence called regularly. Not every week anymore, but often enough. He'd tell me about his projects, the buildings he was helping design. He sounded happy. Then the calls became less frequent. Every 2 weeks, once a month. When we did talk, the conversations felt rushed, shallow. "How are you, Mom?" "I'm good, baby. Missing you. When are you coming to visit?" "Soon. Work's just crazy right now." Soon became 6 months, then a year, then 2 years. They got married in 2016, a small ceremony in New York that I found out about 2 weeks before the date. "We wanted to keep it intimate, Mom," Terrence explained. "Just immediate family." I was immediate family, but clearly I didn't count the same way Sienna's parents, her sister, her grandmother did. I flew to New York anyway, bought a new dress, navy blue, appropriate for a mother of the groom. Sat in the 3rd row at the ceremony because the first 2 rows were reserved for Sienna's family. At the reception, I barely spoke to Terrence. He was busy greeting guests, taking photos, dancing with his new wife. When I left the next day, he hugged me at the airport and said, "Thanks for coming, Mom." It meant a lot, but I could feel the distance widening between us like a canyon I'd never be able to cross. The baby came in 2023, Jordan Elijah Washington. I saw the birth announcement on Facebook before Terrence called to tell me. "We have a son, Mom," he said, and I could hear the exhaustion and joy in his voice. "Congratulations, baby. I'm so happy for you both. When can I come meet him?" A pause. "Let us get settled first. Sienna's recovering and the apartment's a mess. Maybe in a few weeks?" Few weeks became 2 months. When I finally flew up, again paying for my own ticket, I got to hold Jordan for exactly 45 minutes before Sienna said she needed to feed him and put him down for a nap. I left the next day. Over the next year, I saw my grandson 3 times. Each visit felt more strained than the last, like I was a guest who'd overstayed her welcome before I'd even arrived. But I kept trying, because that's what mothers do. We keep loving even when it hurts. We keep showing up even when we're not wanted. We keep hoping that someday something will change. I just didn't realize that something would be me. February 14th, 2025. Valentine's Day. I was at home in Nashville, heating up leftover soup and watching a rerun of The Golden Girls when my phone rang. Unknown number, New York area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mrs. Washington?" "Yes?" "This is Jennifer Martinez from Foster & Associates, a law firm here in Manhattan. I'm calling regarding your recent inquiry about estate planning consultation." My spoon clattered against the pot. "I'm sorry. What inquiry?" According to our records, you contacted our office last month to discuss power of attorney arrangements and, let me see, yes, nursing home placement options. My blood ran cold. Ma'am, I have never contacted your office. I don't even know who you are. A pause. Papers rustling. That's odd. Our intake form was submitted online on January 22nd. The email used was... She rattled off an email address I'd never seen before. That's not my email. More rustling. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. More careful. Mrs. Washington, our records show that your son, Terrence Washington, contacted us on your behalf. He said you'd asked him to help you arrange for long-term care planning and that you were experiencing some memory issues. I couldn't breathe. The room tilted. Memory issues, I repeated. Yes, ma'am. He mentioned you'd been forgetting things, getting confused about finances. He wanted to establish a power of attorney so he could help manage your affairs. He was quite concerned. I was 63 years old. I'd never forgotten a bill payment in my life. I could recite my social security number from memory, knew every tenant's name and lease terms, balanced my checkbook to the penny. Miss Martinez, I said, my voice shaking but clear. I want to be very direct with you. I did not authorize my son to contact your firm. I do not have memory issues. And I absolutely did not request any consultation about nursing homes or power of attorney. Long silence. I see, she said finally. Mrs. Washington, I think there may have been a miscommunication. I'm going to make a note in your file that you did not authorize this inquiry. If you'd like, I can... What I'd like, I interrupted, is for you to send me every document you have related to this inquiry, every email, every form, everything. Of course, I'll have it sent to the address on file. No, email it, to my actual email. I gave her my real address. It'll go out today. I hung up and sat very still, staring at the wall. My son was trying to have me declared incompetent, trying to take control of my assets while I was still alive and healthy. The emails arrived an hour later. I read through them carefully, my hands clenched so tight my knuckles went white. January 22nd, 10:47 a.m. My mother is 70 years old. I was 63. And showing early signs of dementia. She recently forgot to pay several bills, and I'm concerned about her living alone. I'd like to discuss establishing power of attorney and possibly finding appropriate residential care. I'd never missed a bill payment. Ever. There were 3 more emails, each one painting me as a confused old woman who couldn't manage her own life, who needed her son to step in and save her, who needed to be put away. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I forwarded every email to myself, printed them out, and put them in a folder. Then I called my best friend, Stella. Stella, I said when she answered, I need your help. Lorraine? What's wrong? You sound... My son is trying to steal everything I've worked for, and I need a lawyer. 2 weeks later, February 28th, I was cleaning a patient room on the 4th floor of St. Thomas Midtown when my cell phone buzzed. Nashville number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Washington, this is David Chen from the billing department at St. Mary's Hospital in New York. St. Mary's, where Sienna had given birth to Jordan 2 years ago. Yes? I'm calling about an outstanding balance on your account. The charges for Mrs. Sienna Brooks Washington's delivery have a remaining balance of $10,462 after insurance. The account is now seriously past due. I set down my cleaning supplies. Mr. Chen, I don't have an account at your hospital. According to our records, you're listed as the financial guarantor for patient Sienna Brooks Washington. The account was opened on January 15th, 2024. January 2024. Jordan was born in March 2023. This was almost a year before the birth. Can you tell me exactly what I'm supposedly guaranteeing? Let me pull up the details. Yes, the charges include a private recovery suite, upgraded meal service, lactation consultation services, and extended postpartum care. Your son, Terrence Washington, designated you as the responsible party and provided your information, including a digital signature authorizing payment. Digital signature? You mean he signed my name? Well, the form was submitted electronically, so I never signed anything. I never authorized anything. Mr. Chen, this is fraud. Silence. Mrs. Washington, are you saying you didn't consent to being the guarantor? That's exactly what I'm saying. I see. Well, this is a serious allegation. I'll need to escalate this to our legal department. Can you hold, please? I held for 8 minutes, standing in that hospital room, smelling of bleach and disinfectant, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. A new voice came on, older, male. Mrs. Washington, this is Gerald Patel, Senior Billing Manager. Mr. Chen explained the situation. I've pulled up the account and I can see the signature authorization form. Can you confirm your Social Security number for me? I did. And can you confirm you did not provide this information to your son for the purpose of guaranteeing this medical debt? I confirm that I absolutely did not. Mrs. Washington, if what you're saying is true, this constitutes identity theft and medical fraud. We'll need to conduct an investigation. In the meantime, I'm freezing this account and removing you as the responsible party. However, I have to inform you that the signature on file appears to match samples of your signature we have from previous correspondence. My mouth went dry. What previous correspondence? It appears, let me see. Yes, there's a letter on file from 2023 where you apparently gave permission for your son to make medical decisions on your behalf. I'd never written such a letter. Mr. Patel, I need copies of everything, every form with my signature, every piece of correspondence. I'll email them within 24 hours. When I got home that night, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and did something I should have done months ago. I pulled my credit report. And there they were. 2 credit cards I'd never opened. Chase Sapphire Reserve. Credit limit, $15,000. Opened November 2024. Current balance, $14,873. American Express Gold. Credit limit, $20,000. Opened November 2024. Current balance, $13,521. Total fraudulent debt in my name, $28,394. I clicked through the transaction histories, my vision blurring. West Elm, $4,200. Bedroom furniture. Restoration hardware, $6,800. Living room furniture. Whole Foods, $340, $287, $412, $398. Weekly groceries. Le Bernardin, $480, fine dining. Delta Airlines, $2,400, 2 tickets to Cancun. Ritz-Carlton Cancun, $3,800, 5 nights. They were living off credit cards opened in my name, buying furniture, eating at restaurants I couldn't afford even after 40 years of work, taking vacations to beach resorts. While I mopped hospital floors and answered phones and lived on leftover soup. The billing address for both cards, Terrence and Sienna's apartment in Brooklyn. I took screenshots of everything, downloaded PDFs, printed them out, added them to my folder. Then I called Stella. Stella, I said when she answered, and my voice finally broke. They're not just planning to steal from me. They already are. She was at my house in 20 minutes. We sat at my kitchen table until 3 in the morning, going through every document, every email, every credit card statement. Lorraine, she said finally, her hand covering mine. This is elder abuse, financial exploitation. You could have them arrested. I looked at the folder, thick now with evidence of my son's betrayal. I don't want him in jail, I said. I want him to understand what he's done. I want him to lose what he tried to steal. I want justice, Stella, not revenge. She squeezed my hand. Then let's get you a lawyer. The next morning I called Beverly Thompson. I sat in Beverly's office on March 4th, 2025, and laid out everything. The fake nursing home inquiry, the forged hospital signature, the identity theft, $28,000 in fraudulent debt, all of it. Beverly looked up from the documents, her expression grave. Mrs. Washington, you have grounds for criminal prosecution. But if I understand correctly, you want to handle this differently. I nodded. Then we need to act fast, and we need to be strategic. She pulled out a fresh legal pad. Tell me, does your son know how much you're actually worth? He said almost $2 million to his wife. And does he know about your current will? I shook my head. The last time we discussed it was years ago. He knows he's the sole beneficiary. He's counting on that. Beverly's pen hovered over the paper. Not anymore, she said. Here's what we're going to do. Beverly Thompson's law office was on the 3rd floor of a renovated building in downtown Nashville, the kind of place where serious people handled serious matters. The waiting room had leather chairs and diplomas on the wall, Vanderbilt Law, Tennessee Bar Association, certifications in elder law and estate planning. I sat with my folder of evidence on my lap, my hands steady even though my heart was racing. Mrs. Washington? The receptionist smiled. Attorney Thompson will see you now. Beverly was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with silver streaks in her natural hair and sharp brown eyes behind frameless glasses. She stood to shake my hand, her grip firm and professional. Mrs. Washington, please sit. Can I get you water? Coffee? Water would be nice, thank you. She poured from a glass pitcher, set the cup in front of me, and sat down behind her desk. Now, you mentioned on the phone that you're dealing with a family matter involving potential financial exploitation. Tell me everything. So I did. I started with the phone call from Foster & Associates, the law firm in New York that my son had contacted behind my back. I showed her the emails they'd sent, the ones where Terrence claimed I was 70 years old with memory problems, that I'd been forgetting to pay bills, that I needed to be placed in residential care. Beverly's expression didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten. Then I showed her the hospital billing letter, the $10,462 Terrence had guaranteed in my name using a forged digital signature. I'd gotten the documents from St. Mary's Hospital the day before, form after form with my name signed in a way that looked close enough to my handwriting that I understood how they'd been fooled. He practiced, I said quietly. My son practiced forging my signature. Finally, I showed her the credit reports. The 2 cards opened in November 2024. $28,394 in debt that I'd never authorized, with statements showing purchases for furniture, restaurants, airline tickets to Cancun. Beverly spread the documents across her desk like a prosecutor laying out evidence. She was quiet for a long moment, reading through everything carefully. Mrs. Washington, she said finally, what you're describing is textbook elder financial abuse. Identity theft, forgery, fraudulent use of credit. These are criminal offenses. You have grounds to press charges that could result in your son facing serious jail time. I don't want him in jail. She looked up, studying my face. Then what do you want? I'd thought about this question every night for the past week, lying awake in the dark, turning it over and over in my mind. I want to protect what I've built, I said. I want to make sure that when I die, my money goes where it can do real good. Not to a son who tried to steal it while I was still alive. And I want him to understand what he's lost. Not through revenge. Through consequences. Beverly leaned back in her chair. Tell me about your current estate plan. I have a will from 2010. Everything goes to Terrence. He's the sole beneficiary and the executor. Does he know this? Yes. We discussed it years ago after his father died. I told him that everything his daddy and I built would be his someday, that he just needed to be patient. And has he been patient? I thought about the forged signatures, the credit cards, the nursing home inquiry. No, ma'am, he hasn't. Beverly pulled out a fresh legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to create a new will immediately. We'll also set up a revocable living trust to protect your assets while you're alive. This trust will make it much harder for anyone to claim you're incompetent or to gain control of your property. She started writing, her pen moving quickly across the paper. Second, we're going to document everything, every instance of fraud, every forged signature, every dollar stolen. I want you to gather bank statements, credit card bills, emails, anything that shows a pattern of financial exploitation. I've already started. I gestured to my folder. Good. Third, we're going to freeze your credit and set up alerts on all your accounts. No one will be able to open new credit in your name or access your existing accounts without biometric verification. My hands were shaking now, but not from fear, from relief. Someone was finally taking this seriously. Someone was helping me fight back. Now, Beverly said, setting down her pen and looking at me directly, I need to ask you something important. When we make these changes, when we cut your son out of the will or reduce his inheritance significantly, he's going to know something happened. He may contest it. He may claim you were coerced or mentally incompetent. Are you prepared for that fight? I thought about Terrence as a little boy, how he used to climb into my lap when he was scared. I thought about the teenager who cried in my arms when his father died, who promised he'd make me proud someday. I thought about the man who'd looked me in the eye 2 months ago and lied about why he needed my social security number. I'm prepared, I said. There, said. Then let's get to work. Over the next 2 hours, Beverly outlined the strategy in detail. The new will would leave Terrence exactly $50,000, enough that he couldn't claim he'd been accidentally omitted, which would give him grounds to contest. $50,000 was a deliberate amount. It said, I remembered you. I chose this. My grandson Jordan would receive $100,000, but it would be held in an irrevocable trust until he turned 25. Terrence and Sienna would have no access to it, no control over it. An independent trustee, Beverly recommended a professional fiduciary service, would manage the money and ensure it was used for Jordan's education and welfare. My best friend Stella would receive $200,000 with no strings attached. She'd been more family to me than my own son these past few years. She deserved it. The remaining $1, $45 million, would go to create the Lorraine and Robert Washington Educational Trust, a scholarship fund for low-income Black students studying engineering. Every year, the trust would award full-ride scholarships to students who demonstrated both academic excellence and financial need. Students like Terrence used to be, before he forgot where he came from. The scholarship fund is brilliant, Beverly said. It serves a genuine charitable purpose, which makes it nearly impossible to challenge legally, and it sends a clear message about your values. My husband always said education was the key to building generational wealth, I said softly. I want to honor that. Just not with the generation I thought I was building it for. Beverly's expression softened. Mrs. Washington, I've been practicing elder law for 20 years. I've seen families torn apart by money more times than I can count. But I want you to know, what you're doing isn't vindictive. It's smart. You're protecting yourself and creating something meaningful. That takes courage. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Now, she continued, we need to execute this plan carefully. If your son suspects what we're doing, he might accelerate his own plans. That nursing home inquiry? That's a red flag. He's already exploring legal avenues to gain control of your assets by having you declared incompetent. Can he do that? Not easily, but it's possible. If he can get a doctor to testify that you're suffering from dementia or diminished capacity, he could petition for conservatorship. As your only living child, he'd have a strong claim to become your conservator, which would give him legal control over your finances and medical decisions. My stomach dropped. So he could put me in a home against my will? Potentially. That's why we need to move fast. We'll schedule a comprehensive cognitive evaluation with a neurologist, someone independent who'll document that you're of sound mind. We'll get it notarized and attached to your new will. If Terrence tries to claim incompetence later, we'll have evidence that you were fully capable when you made these decisions. She made a note on her pad. We also need to think about the next 60 days strategically. You can't let your son know you're onto him. You need to act normal, maybe even cooperative. Can you do that? I thought about all the years I'd smiled through pain, worked through exhaustion, pretended everything was fine when it wasn't. I can act however I need to act. Good. Because here's the thing about people like your son. They're counting on you being too trusting or too intimidated to fight back. They see elderly parents as easy targets. The moment you start setting boundaries or asking questions, they panic. And panicked people make mistakes. You want me to set a trap? Beverly smiled slightly. I want you to give him enough rope to hang himself, legally speaking. The next morning, I met with Gerald Patterson, the forensic accountant Beverly had recommended. His office was smaller than hers, crammed with file cabinets and computer monitors, but he had the same sharp, focused energy. Mrs. Washington, I've reviewed the preliminary information you sent over, he said, pulling up spreadsheets on his screen. 2 fraudulent credit cards, total debt of $28,000 plus change. But I think we're looking at the tip of the iceberg here. He turned his monitor so I could see. I pulled your bank records going back 18 months, with your authorization, of course. Look at this. He pointed to a series of transactions highlighted in yellow. Small amounts. $200 here, $300 there, $500 occasionally. Always round numbers. Always on Fridays. These are Zelle transfers to a phone number registered to your son. Over the past year, you've sent him $8,400 in what appear to be regular payments. I stared at the screen. I never sent those. I didn't think so. My guess? He has access to your online banking. Probably got your password somehow. I wrote it on a sticky note in my desk drawer, I said, feeling foolish. He visited last year. He must have... Don't blame yourself. This is a common tactic in elder fraud cases. Gerald made a note. We'll change all your passwords today, set up 2-factor authentication, and I'd recommend getting a new phone number. If he has access to your phone, he might be intercepting authentication codes. He pulled up another screen. Now this is where it gets interesting. I requested email records from your internet provider through a legal subpoena, again with your authorization. Your son has been corresponding with his wife about your finances for months. He showed me a printout. An email from Sienna to Terrence, dated December 10th, 2024. Did you talk to your mom about the power of attorney yet? We need to move on this before tax season. If we can get the rental properties transferred to our names, we can claim the depreciation and offset some of your losses from the stock options. My vision blurred. They'd planned this. Carefully, methodically. Another email from January 3rd, 2025. I've been researching conservatorship laws in Tennessee. If we can get a diagnosis of early-stage dementia, you can petition the court for emergency conservatorship. It usually takes 2 to 3 months to process, but once it's granted, you'll have full legal control. I found a template for the petition. It's actually pretty straightforward. Terrence's response: I feel bad about this. She's my mom, Sienna. She's sitting on almost $2 million while we're drowning in debt. Your father left her that life insurance money. Technically, you should have inherited half when he died. She's been controlling that money your whole life. This isn't stealing, T. This is claiming what's rightfully yours. That last line gutted me. Controlling that money your whole life. I'd used that money to pay for Terrence's education, to keep our house, to build a future for both of us. I'd never controlled him with it. I'd freed him with it. There's more, Gerald said gently. He showed me another email, this one from Sienna to someone named Dr. Marcus Whitmore. Marcus, remember when you said you owed Terrence for that referral? We need a favor. His mother is showing signs of cognitive decline, forgetting things, making irrational financial decisions. Could you do an evaluation and provide documentation? Nothing dishonest, just a clinical opinion that she might need supervised care? Dr. Whitmore's response: Sienna, I can't diagnose someone I haven't examined. That's unethical and illegal. Sienna, what if we brought her in for a routine checkup? You could do a mini mental status exam, note any red flags. Terrence just needs something on official letterhead. No response from Dr. Whitmore after that. They were planning to fake a dementia diagnosis, I said, my voice hollow. It appears so, though to Dr. Whitmore's credit, he didn't participate. Gerald closed the screen. Mrs. Washington, I've documented everything. We have clear evidence of identity theft, fraud, unauthorized access to your accounts, and conspiracy to commit financial exploitation. This is prosecutable. Beverly said the same thing. Are you going to press charges? I thought about Terrence at 22, walking across the stage to receive his college diploma, turning to wave at me in the crowd, the pride in his eyes. No, I said. But I want him to know I could have. I want him to understand how close he came to destroying his own life. Gerald nodded. Then we make sure every piece of evidence is preserved and documented. If he ever tries this again, with you or anyone else, there'll be a paper trail. On March 18th, 2025, I signed my new will in Beverly Thompson's office. She'd brought in 3 witnesses, her paralegal, the office receptionist, and a notary public. All of them independent, none of them family, all of them prepared to testify if necessary that I was of sound mind and under no duress. Beverly read through the will aloud, slowly, making sure I understood every provision. I, Lorraine Marie Washington, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all previous wills and codicils. The old will, the one from 2010 that left everything to Terrence, was being replaced. To my son, Terrence Robert Washington, I leave the sum of $50,000, to be paid within 90 days of my death, have caused me great pain. Beverly looked at the envelope and sighed. I'm sorry, but I can't accept this bequest. It's not what I wanted for my family. Have caused me great pain. Beverly looked up. That last phrase establishes that you're leaving him money deliberately, not accidentally. It also hints at the reason without being vindictive. If he tries to contest, this language will work against him. To my grandson, Jordan Elijah Washington, I leave the sum of $100,000, to be held in an irrevocable trust administered by Fidelity Trust Services until he reaches the age of 25. These funds are to be used exclusively for his education, health care, and general welfare. His parents shall have no access to these funds and no authority over their management. I thought about Jordan, barely 2 years old, with Terrence's smile and Robert's gentle eyes. Whatever his parents had done, he was innocent, and someday when he was old enough to understand, he'd know his grandmother had thought of him. To my dear friend Stella Marie Jenkins, I leave the sum of $200,000, in gratitude for 40 years of friendship, loyalty, and love. Stella has been my sister in all but blood, and I wish her to enjoy her remaining years in comfort and security. When I told Stella about this, she'd cried so hard we both ended up crying. Lorraine, that's too much, she'd said. I just love you. That's all. I didn't do it for money. I know, I told her. That's exactly why you deserve it. The remainder of my estate, including all real property, financial accounts, investments, and personal property, shall be used to establish the Lorraine and Robert Washington Educational Trust. This trust shall provide full scholarship funding to academically qualified students from low-income backgrounds who are pursuing degrees in engineering, architecture, or related technical fields. The scholarship would be administered by the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee. They'd handle applications, verify financial need, oversee the money. Every year, they estimated the trust could support 10 to 12 full-ride scholarships. 10 to 12 young people who'd get the chance Terrence had gotten, and wouldn't waste it. The trustee shall give preference to African American students who have demonstrated resilience in the face of hardship and who have expressed commitment to using their education to serve their communities. Students like Terrence used to be, before privilege made him entitled, before comfort made him cruel. I signed my name on the final page. The witnesses signed. The notary stamped it. Beverly placed the will in a sealed envelope and handed me a copy. This is now your legal last will and testament, she said. The original will be kept in our office safe. A copy will be filed with the probate court. Your son no longer controls your legacy, Lorraine. You do. I held the envelope, feeling its weight. 40 years of work. 40 years of sacrifice. All of it had been leading to this moment. Thank you, I sassy said. Beverly smiled. Now comes the hard part. You have to keep this secret while we gather more evidence. Can you do that? Watch me. That evening, I called Terrence. I'd rehearsed what I was going to say, practiced keeping my voice steady and warm. I couldn't let him hear the anger, the hurt, the knowledge. Not yet. Mom! He sounded surprised. We hadn't spoken since the credit card incident 2 weeks ago. How are you? I'm good, baby. I've been thinking about something and I wanted to talk to you about it. Okay. I'm getting older, Terrence. 63 this year. And I've been rattling around in this big house all by myself. It's a lot to maintain. I could practically hear him leaning forward, suddenly interested. Have you thought about downsizing? He asked carefully. I have. In fact, I've been thinking maybe I should move closer to you and Jordan. I miss my grandson so much. It would be nice to see him grow up. That would be amazing, Mom. Sienna and I were just talking about how Jordan needs to spend more time with his grandmother. Sienna, who'd barely let me hold Jordan for more than 5 minutes at a time. Sienna, who called me Mrs. Washington with that edge of disdain. The thing is, I continued, I'm worried about my properties. The rental houses, the commercial building. I don't know if I should sell them or keep managing them from New York or... Don't sell, Terrence said quickly. Too quickly. I mean, those are great assets, Mom. You shouldn't rush into selling. Maybe I could help you manage them. You could transfer them to my name, temporarily, just for tax purposes, and I'd handle everything. Collect the rent, deal with repairs, all of it. Transfer them to his name, for tax purposes. I closed my eyes. That's a lot of responsibility for you, honey. Are you sure? Absolutely. In fact, I've been doing some research on estate planning. Did you know that if you transfer property before you die, it avoids probate? Saves a ton in taxes and legal fees. I could send you some articles about it. That would be helpful. And Mom, I want to apologize for the credit card thing. Sienna and we've been under a lot of financial pressure. I shouldn't have put you in that position. It was wrong. He sounded sincere. If I hadn't read his emails, heard his plans, seen the evidence, I might have believed him. I appreciate that, baby. So you're really thinking about moving up here? I am. Maybe we could talk more about it when I visit next month. Next month? Well, I'll need to see the lawyer you mentioned. The one who does estate planning. What was the name of that firm again? A pause. Foster and Associates. I can set up a meeting. That would be wonderful. And Terrence, I want you to know how much I love you. You're my son, my only child. Everything I have, I built it for you. I love you too, Mom. We hung up. I sat there in my kitchen, phone in my hand, and allowed myself 1 minute of grief. 1 minute to mourn the relationship we used to have, before money corrupted it. Before his wife poisoned him. Before greed turned my son into a stranger. Then I called Beverly and left a voicemail. I took the bait. He wants me to transfer the properties to his name. I'm meeting with Foster and Associates next month. I'll need you to prepare me. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for him to walk into it. April 8th, 2025. I flew to New York on a Tuesday morning. Terrence had offered to pay for my ticket. The first time in years he'd offered to pay for anything, which told me everything I needed to know about his motivations. He picked me up at LaGuardia, hugged me tight, helped with my suitcase. You look great, Mom. Did you lose weight? Maybe a little. All this stress about the properties. Well, don't worry. We're going to get everything sorted out today. The meeting with Foster and Associates was scheduled for 2 o'clock. Terrence had already been there once, apparently, to discuss my situation. I wondered what lies he'd told them. What version of me he'd painted. We stopped for lunch first at a little cafe in Midtown. Sienna met us there, kissing my cheek and calling me Mom Washington with that same fake warmth. Terrence told me you're thinking about relocating, she said, sipping her $7 latte. That's so exciting. Jordan would love having his grandmother nearby. I'd love that too, I said, stirring my coffee. Though I worry about being a burden. A burden? Don't be silly. Your family. Family. The word felt like a slap. Terrence's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned. Mom, I have to take this. Work emergency. I'll be right back." He stepped outside. Sienna watched him go, then turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Washington, I want to be honest with you. Terrence is under a lot of pressure right now. His job is demanding. We have Jordan to think about, and frankly, we're struggling a bit financially." I didn't know things were that tight. "He doesn't like to worry you, but the truth is we could really use some help. Not charity, just family helping family. If you did decide to transfer some of those properties to us, it would make such a difference. We could breathe a little easier." I looked at her carefully. She was younger than Terrence by 4 years, beautiful, educated, from a wealthy family, and here she was, asking an old woman who cleaned hospital floors to hand over $1 million in property. "I'll have to think about it," I said. Her smile tightened. "Of course. We'd never pressure you." But pressure was exactly what this was. Foster and Associates occupied a sleek office on the 42nd floor of a building in the financial district. The receptionist offered us sparkling water. The waiting room had fresh flowers and a view of the harbor. Attorney Richard Foster was in his 50s, with silver hair and a Brooks Brothers suit. He shook my hand with the kind of firm grip meant to convey trustworthiness. "Mrs. Washington, it's a pleasure. Your son speaks so highly of you." "That's kind of him." We settled into chairs around a conference table. Terrence sat beside me, Sienna across from us. Attorney Foster pulled out a folder. "Now, Terrence has explained your situation. You're 63 years old, widowed, living alone in Nashville with significant real estate holdings. You're concerned about managing these properties as you age and want to ensure a smooth transition of assets to avoid probate complications." That wasn't what I was concerned about, but I nodded. "I've prepared some documents for your review," Foster continued, sliding papers across the table. "The first is a durable power of attorney, which would authorize Terrence to make financial decisions on your behalf if you become unable to do so. The second is a healthcare power of attorney, giving him authority over medical decisions. And third, we have deed transfer documents that would transfer ownership of your 4 properties to Terrence while allowing you to retain a life estate." "What's a life estate?" I asked, even though Beverly had explained it to me in detail. "It means you can continue living in your primary residence for the rest of your life. You'd still have use of the property, but legal ownership would transfer to Terrence now, which has significant tax advantages and ensures the properties don't go through probate when you pass. And the rental income would be split between you and Terrence according to whatever arrangement you agree on. Typically, since you'd still be managing the properties, you'd continue receiving the income." Typically, but nothing about this was typical. I picked up the power of attorney document, pretending to read it carefully. "This is a lot to process. These documents give Terrence control over everything?" "Only if you become incapacitated. Until then, you maintain full control." "And how would someone determine if I'm incapacitated?" Foster shifted slightly. "Usually it requires certification from 2 physicians that you're unable to manage your own affairs. It's a safeguard to prevent abuse. Unless those physicians were friends of your son who owed him favors." I set down the papers. "Mr. Foster, can I be frank with you?" "Of course." "This all feels very complicated. And fast. I appreciate Terrence's concern, but I'm a healthy 63-year-old woman. I'm not sure I need to give anyone power of attorney quite yet." Terrence tensed beside me. "Mom, we talked about this. You said you wanted help." "I said I wanted to discuss options. I didn't say I was ready to sign everything over today." Sienna leaned forward. "Mrs. Washington, no one's trying to take anything from you. We're trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" The room went quiet. Foster cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should schedule a follow-up meeting. Give you time to review everything with your own attorney." "I think that's a good idea," I said. I stood up. Terrence stood too, his face flushed. "Mom, wait, let's talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about right now, sweetheart. I need to think." I turned to Foster. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Foster." Outside the building, Terrence grabbed my arm. "Mom, what was that? You embarrassed me in there." "I embarrassed you?" "Terrence, you're trying to get me to sign away everything I own." To protect it. To help you. I don't need that kind of help. Sienna had followed us out. Terrence, maybe we should— No! He snapped at her. Then to me. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to push. It's just, we're under a lot of pressure right now, and I thought— You thought you could solve your money problems with mine. His face went pale. That's not fair. Isn't it? We stared at each other on the crowded sidewalk, tourists and business people streaming past us. My son, my only child, a stranger who wanted to steal from me. I think I'm going to head back to my hotel, I said quietly. I'll catch a cab. Mom, please, let's talk about this. I'm tired, Terrence. We'll talk later. I walked away before he could see me cry. What Terrence didn't know, what Sienna didn't know, was that Beverly Thompson had been sitting in a Starbucks across the street from Foster and Associates the entire time, watching through the glass windows. I'd texted her when we arrived, when we went into the office, when I left. She'd seen everything. That evening, I went back to Terrence's apartment. He'd insisted I stay with them instead of a hotel, and I'd agreed because I needed to maintain the pretense. I needed them to think I was considering their proposal. I slept on the couch again, the guest room still under renovation. Jordan was already in bed when I arrived. I heard him crying briefly around 8:30, heard Sienna's voice soothing him, felt my heart crack a little more. At 11 o'clock, I was lying in the dark when I heard their bedroom door close. Then voices, low and urgent. I picked up my phone and opened the voice recording app Beverly had shown me how to use. In Tennessee, I could legally record conversations I was part of or overheard. I pressed record and set the phone on the couch beside me. Did she sign anything? That was Sienna's voice carrying through the thin walls. No, she freaked out at the last minute. Terrence, we're $60,000 in debt. We need her assets. I know, baby. Trust me, I know. So what do we do? A long pause. Then Terrence spoke, and what he said made my blood run cold. If she won't sign willingly, we might have to go with Plan B. The nursing home? My hand clenched around the phone. Greenwood Senior Living has a memory care unit, Terrence said. They specialize in early-stage dementia patients. If we can get a doctor to say she's showing signs— Your mother is sharp as a tack, Terrence. No legitimate doctor would diagnose her with dementia. Dr. Whitmore said no, but I have other options. Dr. Patricia Chen. She's new to the area, trying to build her practice. She might be willing to do an evaluation that leans our direction. You're talking about bribing a doctor. I'm talking about getting a professional medical opinion that my mother needs supervised care. Once we have that, I can petition for emergency conservatorship. It usually takes 2 to 3 months to process, but once it's granted, I'll have full legal control over her finances and medical decisions. And then what? You just put her in a home? It wouldn't be forever, just until we get the properties transferred and the debt paid off. Then we could, I don't know, reassess. Maybe she could live independently again once things are stable. Sienna was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. Terrence, this is your mother. Are you really okay with this? Another long pause. I don't know what else to do, he said, and he sounded almost broken. I lost my job 6 months ago, Sienna. 6 months. I've been lying to everyone. To you, to my mom, to our friends. I'm working freelance projects that barely cover groceries. We're living off your salary and credit cards. I'm drowning, and my mother is sitting on $2 million she doesn't even need. My breath stopped. He'd lost his job? 6 months ago? Why didn't you tell me? Sienna asked. Because I was ashamed. Because I'm supposed to be the provider. Because my father died young and never got to build wealth. And I'm 34 years old with a master's degree, and I can't even support my own family. So the solution is to steal from your mother? It's not stealing. It's going to be mine eventually anyway. I'm just accelerating the timeline by having her declared incompetent and locked in a memory care facility. You're the one who researched conservatorship laws. I was researching options. I didn't think you'd actually— Then what do you want me to do, Sienna, huh?
We're about to lose our apartment.
Jordan's daycare costs more than our rent. Your parents won't help because they think I'm a failure. My mother won't help because she's too busy playing real estate mogul instead of acting like a normal grandmother. So tell me, what's your solution? Silence. Then Sienna said very quietly, "We could ask her for help. Actually ask. Tell her the truth about your job, about the debt. Maybe she'd lecture me. Tell me how she worked 2 jobs and sacrificed everything, and I should be grateful. I'm tired of being grateful, Sienna. I'm tired of feeling like I owe her my entire life because she paid for college. She chose to do that. I didn't ask her to." I felt something break inside me that I didn't know could still break. "Think about it," Terrence continued. "By the time she dies naturally, she could be 90. That's 27 more years. We'll be in our 60s before we inherit anything. Our whole lives on hold, waiting for her to die. That's not fair. So you're going to take it now. I'm going to do what I have to do to take care of my family. That's what fathers do." "And what about what sons do?" No answer. I lay there in the dark, phone recording every word, tears sliding silently down my face. My son, the boy I'd raised alone, the young man I'd sacrificed everything for, was planning to have me declared mentally incompetent and locked away so he could steal what I'd built. Not for food, not for medicine, not because he was desperate and had no other choice. Because he was impatient. Because waiting for me to die naturally wasn't fast enough. The recording ran for another 10 minutes. Sienna trying to talk him out of it. Terrence defensive and angry. Both of them eventually falling into exhausted silence. I kept recording until I heard their bedroom go quiet. Then I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, listening to my grandson whimper occasionally in his room, and made my decision. I left before they woke up, left a note on the kitchen counter. Had to catch an early flight. Emergency at one of the rental properties. Thank you for hosting me. Love, Mom. At LaGuardia, I didn't board a plane to Nashville. Instead, I went to a coffee shop, bought the most expensive latte I'd ever purchased in my life, and called Beverly. "I have it," I said when she answered. "I have everything." I played her the recording, all 47 minutes of it. When it finished, Beverly was quiet for a long moment. "Lorraine, this is damning. He explicitly discusses having you falsely diagnosed, filing for conservatorship, and institutionalizing you against your will. This is conspiracy to commit elder abuse. This is kidnapping. I know what it is. You could have him arrested today. Right now. I could call the Manhattan DA's office and I don't want him arrested."
Then what do you want?
I watched the planes taking off through the terminal windows, carrying people toward destinations they'd chosen freely. "I want to go home. I want to execute the plan we discussed. And I want to make sure he never has the chance to do this to me or anyone else ever again." "Then we move to phase 2. Are you ready?" "I'm ready." When I got back to Nashville that evening, I didn't go straight home. I went to my bank, the same bank I'd used for 40 years, where everyone knew my name. "Mrs. Washington," the branch manager, Patricia Moore, smiled warmly. "What can we do for you today?" "I need to make some changes to my accounts." Over the next 2 hours, 1. Changed every single password on every account. 2. Set up biometric authentication for all transactions over $500. 3. Enabled 2-factor authentication requiring a code sent to a new phone number Terrence didn't have. 4. Transferred $400,000 from my savings account into the revocable living trust Beverly had set up. Money that was now legally protected and couldn't be accessed by anyone but me and the trustee. 5. Placed fraud alerts on my credit file with all 3 bureaus. 6. Sent notarized letters to every bank, investment firm, and credit card company I did business with, stating, "I, Lorraine Marie Washington, am of sound mind and body. No one has my permission to access my accounts, make transactions, or conduct business on my behalf except me. Any requests claiming to represent me should be verified directly with me via phone call." Patricia processed everything without question, though I could see the concern in her eyes. "Mrs. Washington, if you're experiencing any kind of financial exploitation or coercion..." "I'm handling it," I said. But thank you for caring. When I got home, it was after 9 o'clock. The house was dark and quiet. I made myself a cup of tea, sat at the kitchen table, and waited. The phone rang at 9:47 p.m. Terrence. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello? Mom. His voice was tight, angry. What did you do? I'm sorry, what? The credit card companies called Sienna today. Both cards got frozen. They said you reported them as fraudulent. I took a sip of tea. That's because they were fraudulent, Terrence. Those were for emergencies. Emergency furniture? Emergency vacation to Cancun? Please, those weren't emergencies. That was theft. I was going to pay you back. With what money? You lost your job 6 months ago. The line went dead silent. How did you? He started. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? You used my credit without permission. You forged my signature on a hospital bill. You contacted a law firm pretending I wanted to be put in a nursing home. And now you're planning to have me declared incompetent so you can steal what I've spent 40 years building. Mom, I can explain. Explain how you practiced forging my signature. Explain how you called me 70 years old when I'm 63. Explain how you told your wife that waiting for me to die naturally wasn't fast enough. Another silence. When he spoke again, his voice was small. You were listening. I was sleeping on your couch, where you put me because your guest room was under renovation. You weren't exactly quiet. Mom, please. You don't understand. We're in trouble. Real trouble. I lost my job and we're drowning in debt and I didn't know what else to do. You could have asked me for help, like a son. Instead, you tried to steal from me, like a criminal. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. Please, can we talk about this? Can I fix this? I thought about the new will sitting in Beverly's safe, the trust protecting my assets, the recorded conversation documenting his plans, the evidence of fraud and forgery and conspiracy. Terrence, I said quietly, the time for talking was before you forged my signature, before you opened credit cards in my name, before you planned to lock me in a memory care unit so you could get your hands on my money. What are you going to do? I'm going to protect myself, that's all. You made your choices. Now you have to live with the consequences. Are you going to press charges? I closed my eyes, saw him as a little boy in his Superman cape, as a teenager crying in my arms when his father died, as a young man walking across a stage with his diploma. No, I said. But from now on, my financial accounts are locked. You have no access, no emergency contacts, no authorizations. If you try to open credit in my name again, if you contact another lawyer claiming I need care, if you forge one more signature, I will press charges. Do you understand? Yes. Good. Now let me talk to my grandson. He's asleep. Then kiss him goodnight for me. Tell him Grandma loves him. I hung up before Terrence could respond. And then finally, I let myself cry. Not for what I'd lost. I'd already grieved that son. But for what could have been if he'd chosen differently. If he'd valued me more than my money. If he'd just asked instead of schemed. If he'd loved me the way I'd loved him. 2 weeks passed. Terrence called 17 times. I didn't answer. He sent 12 text messages. I didn't respond. Finally, an email arrived. Mom, I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know I hurt you in ways I can't take back. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how I could have just asked for help instead of doing what I did. You're right. I was a coward. I was ashamed to admit I'd failed, so I tried to take from you instead. Sienna and I are seeing a financial counselor. We're facing our debt honestly now. It's going to take years to dig out, but we're doing it the right way. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I'm trying to be better. For Jordan. For Sienna. For the memory of who I used to be before I let money corrupt me. I love you, Mom. I always will. I read the email 3 times. It sounded sincere, Maybe it even was sincere. But I'd learned my lesson. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal just because someone says they're sorry. I forwarded the email to Beverly without comment. Her response came an hour later. This is good. Keep all communication. If he contacts you again, be cordial, but maintain boundaries. And Lorraine, you did the right thing. I know it doesn't feel that way, but you did. That night, I slept better than I had in months, because I knew the truth now. The people who really loved me, Stella, Beverly, Patricia at the bank, they'd stood by me without expecting anything in return. And the person I'd given everything to, he'd seen me as a bank account, not a mother. But he didn't anymore. Now he knew I was a woman who could say no, who could set boundaries, who could protect what she'd built. And that made all the difference. On May 2nd, exactly 3 weeks after that email, there was a knock on my door at 7 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't expecting anyone. Stella wouldn't arrive until 9. The lawn service came on Wednesdays. I looked through the peephole. Terrence and Sienna stood on my porch, both dressed in clothes that looked slept in. Sienna was holding Jordan, who was crying. Terrence had a duffel bag at his feet. They looked desperate. They looked broken. They looked exactly like people who'd run out of options. I took a deep breath, sent a quick text to Beverly, "They're here," and opened the door. "Mom," Terrence said, his voice cracking. "We need to talk. Please, just 5 minutes." I looked at Jordan, my grandson, with tears on his cheeks and fear in his eyes, and I made a decision that would change everything. "Come in," I said. They stood in my living room like refugees from their own lives. Terrence's eyes were red-rimmed. Sienna's designer clothes, usually so carefully pressed, were wrinkled and stained. Jordan whimpered against his mother's shoulder, his little face swollen from crying. "Sit," I said, gesturing to the couch. They sat. I remained standing. Old habits from 40 years of cleaning. Never sit when you might need to move quickly, to respond, to protect yourself. "Jordan needs to sleep," I said. "Put him in the guest room upstairs. Second door on the left." Sienna looked at Terrence, uncertain. He nodded. She carried Jordan up the stairs, and I heard the soft creak of the guest bed, the bed that had always been available, unlike the perpetually under-renovation room in their apartment. When Sienna came back down, she looked smaller somehow, diminished. "Thank you," she said quietly. I didn't respond. I just waited. Terrence spoke first. "Mom, we lost the apartment. Got evicted 3 days ago. We've been staying in a motel in Queens, but we ran out of money this morning. I didn't know where else to go." "What about Sienna's parents?" Sienna flinched. They said no. They found out about the credit cards, about what we did to you. My mother said I'd disgrace the family, and that I needed to face the consequences of my choices." I felt a flicker of satisfaction, then pushed it down. This wasn't about satisfaction. This was about truth. "So you came here," I said, "after trying to steal from me, after planning to have me locked away, after forging my signature and opening credit cards in my name. You came here looking for help." "We have nowhere else to go," Terrence said. His voice broke. "Mom, I know what we did was unforgivable. I know we don't deserve your help. But Jordan, he's innocent in all this. He's 2 years old. He doesn't understand why we're sleeping in a car or why Mommy and Daddy are crying all the time." "You were sleeping in a car with my grandson." Something cold settled in my chest. "How did you get here?" I asked. "We drove. 15 hours straight. We've been on the road since yesterday afternoon." I walked to the kitchen, poured 3 glasses of water, brought them back. They drank like they were dying of thirst. "Tell me everything," I said. "And I mean everything. No more lies. No more schemes. The truth, or you can leave right now." So they told me. Terrence had lost his job in October 2024. Not 6 months ago, but 7. He'd been fired for missing deadlines, for work that was substandard, for spending too much time managing his side investments instead of doing his actual job. He'd been too ashamed to tell Sienna for the first month, so he'd pretended to go to work every day, sitting in coffee shops and libraries, applying for jobs that never called back. When he finally told Sienna in November, they'd panicked. Her salary alone couldn't cover their rent. $3,200 a month for a 2-bedroom in Brooklyn. Jordan's daycare was another $2,400. Student loans, $800. Car payment, $450. They'd been living beyond their means even when Terrence was working, buying furniture they couldn't afford, eating out 4 nights a week, taking vacations on credit cards. That's when we started talking about your assets, Sienna said, not meeting my eyes. Terrence mentioned you owned property, that you'd built up significant wealth. We thought maybe you could help. But when he asked, you said you were saving it for his inheritance. So you decided to take it early. We were desperate, Terrence said. I know that's not an excuse, but we were looking at eviction, at losing everything. I thought if I could just get access to the rental income from your properties, we could catch up on bills. I thought I could manage them for you, take a small percentage, and we'd all benefit. A small percentage, I repeated. Terrence, you tried to get me to transfer full ownership. That's not a percentage. That's everything. He looked down at his hands, the same hands I'd held when he was learning to walk, the same hands that had forged my signature. I know, he whispered. Sienna took over. The credit cards were my idea. I found your information in Terrence's old files, social security number, mother's maiden name, address. I told myself it was just temporary, that we'd pay it back. But then the debt kept growing, and we kept spending. And before we knew it, we were almost $30,000 in the hole. $28,394, I said. I know the exact amount. She nodded. I'm so sorry. And the hospital bill. The forged signature. Terrence rubbed his face. That was me. When Jordan was born, our insurance didn't cover the private room or the extended care. $10,000. I panicked. I knew you'd never agree to pay for it if I asked. You'd say we should have chosen the regular room, that we were being extravagant. So I signed your name on the guarantor form. I thought I'd pay it off before you ever found out. But you didn't. No. And the nursing home inquiry? The plan to have me declared incompetent? The room went very quiet. That was... Terrence stopped, started again. That was the worst thing I've ever considered doing. And I'm ashamed that I even thought about it. But Mom, you have to understand we were drowning. Sienna's pregnant again. My head snapped up. What? Sienna's hand moved to her stomach. 3 months. We found out in February, right around the time everything started falling apart. Another grandchild. Another innocent life being dragged into this mess. We knew we couldn't afford another baby, Terrence continued. Not with me unemployed and the debt. And I just kept thinking about all that money sitting in your accounts, in those properties, and you're 63 and healthy, and you could live another 30 years. And what were we supposed to do? Wait until we were in our 60s to inherit anything while our lives fell apart now? There it was, the ugly truth beneath all the justifications. He didn't want to wait for me to die naturally. He wanted what was mine, and he wanted it now. I walked to my bedroom, to the closet where I'd hidden a large folder. I brought it back and set it on the coffee table between us. Open it, I said. Terrence reached for the folder with shaking hands. Inside he found the emails from Foster and Associates, documenting his claim that I had memory problems. The hospital billing documents with my forged signature, circled in red. The credit card statements showing every purchase, every piece of furniture, every restaurant meal, every vacation charge. The credit reports showing the 2 fraudulent accounts. The transcript of the recording from their apartment. Every word of their conversation about Plan B and Dr. Whitmore and conservatorship, printed in neat black type. And finally, at the bottom of the pile, a copy of my new will. Terrence read the will slowly, his face going from white to gray to something like green. You changed it, he said. You changed everything. I did. When? March 18th, 6 weeks ago. He looked up at me, and I saw the moment he understood. That trip to New York, when you met with Foster, you were gathering evidence. You were building a case against us. I was protecting myself from my own son. Sienna was crying silently, tears running down her face. Mrs. Washington, please. I know we don't deserve anything from you. I know what we did was criminal. But we have a 2-year-old upstairs and a baby on the way, and we're homeless. And I'm begging you. What are you begging for exactly? I asked, my voice harder than I intended. Money? Forgiveness? For me to pretend this never happened? We just need help, Terrence said. Any help, a loan, a place to stay for a few weeks while I find work. Anything, Mom. I'll do anything. I sat down, finally, across from them, and looked at the 2 people who tried to steal my life's work. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm going to give you 2 choices. Only 2, and you have 24 hours to decide. They waited, barely breathing. Choice 1. You accept the terms of my new will. When I die, you get $50,000. Jordan gets $100,000 in a trust he can't access until he's 25. The rest goes to charity. You leave here tomorrow, you figure out your own lives, and you never ask me for another penny as long as I live. Terrence opened his mouth to protest. I held up my hand. Choice 2. I press charges. Identity theft, fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit elder abuse. I have enough evidence to put both of you in prison. You lose everything. Your freedom, your son, any chance at a normal life. The baby gets born while Sienna's in prison. Jordan goes into foster care. And you still get nothing from me except a criminal record. The silence was absolute. Those are your options, I said. Accept what I've chosen to leave you and walk away with your dignity, or face the legal consequences of what you've done. $50,000, Terrence said slowly. That's nothing. Mom, you're worth almost $2 million. I know what I'm worth. The question is, do you know what you're worth? He stared at me. For 40 years, I worked 2 jobs to give you opportunities I never had. I paid for your education, $187,000. I never asked for a thank you. I never asked for payback. I just wanted you to have a better life than I did. My voice was steady. I'd practiced this speech in my head 100 times. And you took all of that love, all of that sacrifice. And you decided it still wasn't enough. You decided you deserved more. Not earned, deserved. Like my life's work was yours by right instead of by gift. Mom, I'm not finished. You forged my signature. You stole my identity. You planned to have me declared mentally incompetent and locked in a nursing home so you could take what you wanted. You didn't see me as your mother. You saw me as an obstacle between you and money. Terrence was crying now, full, gasping sobs. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I don't know when I became this person. I know when, I said quietly. It happened the moment you decided that waiting for me to die wasn't fast enough. The words hit him like a physical blow. So here's the truth, I continued. The money I'm leaving to the scholarship fund, that money is going to help kids who understand what you've forgotten. That education is a gift, not an entitlement. That family is about love, not inheritance. That you don't measure a mother's worth by the size of her bank account. I stood up. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Accept the $50,000 and go, or face criminal charges. There is no third option. There is no negotiation. Those are your choices. And if we choose the money? Sienna asked, her voice barely a whisper. Then you take it and you leave. You don't call asking for more. You don't show up at my door in another crisis. You don't use Jordan as leverage to guilt me into helping. You get your $50,000 and our relationship is over. Over? Terrence looked like I'd slapped him. Mom, I'm your son. You stopped being my son the day you tried to steal from me. You're a 34-year-old man who made choices. Now you get to live with them. I walked to the stairs. Jordan can sleep here tonight. There's food in the kitchen. Help yourselves. I'm going to bed. In the morning, you'll tell me your decision. Mom, wait! I turned back. What? Terrence stood there, tears streaming down his face, looking more lost than I'd ever seen him. Do you hate me? I thought about that question. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. I don't hate you. I'm just done being your safety net while you treat me like an ATM. I'm done sacrificing myself for someone who only values me for what I can give them. I'm done, Terrence. And that's not hate. That's self-respect. I went upstairs, closed my bedroom door, and sat on the edge of my bed. My phone buzzed. A text from Beverly. How'd it go? I typed back. They're staying overnight. Decision tomorrow. Do you think they'll take the deal? I looked at the ceiling, thought about my son crying downstairs, thought about the grandson sleeping in my guest room, thought about 40 years of love that hadn't been enough. Yes, I typed. They don't have a choice. In the morning, I found them in the kitchen. Jordan was eating cereal at the table, regular Cheerios from my cupboard, not the organic kind they usually bought. Terrence and Sienna looked like they hadn't slept. We accept, Terrence said without preamble. We'll take the $50,000 and go. I nodded, poured myself coffee. There's paperwork you'll need to sign, acknowledging the terms, waiving any future claims to my estate. Beverly will send it over today. Okay. The money will be released within 90 days of my death, not before. I understand. We stood there in my kitchen, the kitchen where I'd taught him to bake cookies, where we'd done homework together, where we'd laughed and cried and built a life that no longer existed. Can I ask you something? Terrence said. You can ask. Why 50,000? Why not nothing? I looked at Jordan, happily swinging his legs and eating cereal, oblivious to the adult pain swirling around him. Because you're still my son, I said quietly. And despite everything, I can't completely erase 34 years of love. 50,000 is enough to help you get back on your feet if you're smart about it. It's enough to prove I'm not vindictive, but it's not enough to reward what you did. And the scholarship fund? Is everything your father and I dreamed of building. A legacy that actually means something. Sienna spoke up for the first time. Mrs. Washington, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I want you to know, I'm the one who pushed Terrence toward all of this. The credit cards, the estate planning, all of it. He was hesitant, and I kept pushing. If you want to blame someone, blame me. I looked at her, this beautiful, educated woman who'd had every advantage in life and still wanted more. I blame both of you, I said. You're adults. You made choices together. Now you deal with the consequences together. Jordan finished his cereal and looked at me with Robert's eyes. Gamma? My heart cracked a little. Yes, baby? Can I have more? I poured him more cereal, kissed the top of his head. He smelled like baby shampoo and innocence. Jordan, I said to Terrence, gets a separate trust fund, $100,000 that you can't touch. When he turns 25, he'll get a letter from me explaining everything. He'll get to decide for himself what kind of man he wants to be. You're going to tell him? Tell him what we did? I'm going to tell him the truth. That his parents made mistakes. That his grandmother loved him enough to protect his future, even when his parents wouldn't. And that family isn't about money, it's about character. Terrence nodded slowly. He deserves better than us. Then be better, I said simply. Not for me, for him. They left an hour later. I stood on the porch and watched them load their car, the same car they'd driven 15 hours in desperation. Jordan waved at me from his car seat, and I waved back, my throat tight. Terrence paused at the driver's door. Mom? Yes? Thank you. For not pressing charges. For giving us anything at all. I know we don't deserve it. You're right, you don't. But Jordan does. And the baby does. So I'm doing this for them, not you. He nodded, got in the car, drove away. I watched until they disappeared around the corner, then went inside and called Beverly. It's done, I said. How do you feel? I thought about that. Free, I said finally. For the first time in years, I feel free. 6 months later, on a warm September morning, I stood in the community center auditorium with 12 young people and their families. the first recipients of the Lorraine and Robert Washington Educational Trust scholarships. Beverly stood next to me, beaming. Stella sat in the front row, crying happy tears. The director of the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee was at the podium, reading the names of each scholar. Maya Johnson, pursuing mechanical engineering at Tennessee State University. A young woman stood up, grinning. Her mother clutched her hand, both of them crying. Deshaun Williams, studying civil engineering at Vanderbilt University. A young man in a suit that looked borrowed, probably from a cousin or uncle, stood and waved. His grandmother cheered from the audience. Jasmine Turner, structural engineering at Georgia Tech. One by one they stood. 12 students. 12 full-ride scholarships. 12 futures I was helping to build. After the ceremony, they came up to meet me, to shake my hand, to thank me. Maya Johnson, the first one called, grabbed both my hands and said, "Mrs. Washington, you don't know what this means. My mom works 3 jobs. I was going to have to take out $50,000 in loans just for my first year. This scholarship, it's everything." "Tell me about your dream," I said. Her eyes lit up. "I want to design prosthetic limbs. My little brother lost his leg in a car accident, and the prosthetics available to us, the ones we could afford, they're so basic. I want to make better ones that poor families can actually access." I thought about Terrence, who'd wanted to build bridges and ended up burning them instead. "You're going to change lives," I told her, "because you changed mine first." They all called me Grandma Lorraine, every single one of them. And when they said it, they meant it. I'm 65 years old now. 2 years have passed since that morning when Terrence and Sienna showed up at my door. 2 years since I made the hardest choice of my life. I still live in the house Robert and I bought in 1985. Stella moved in with me last year. Her arthritis was getting bad and she needed help with stairs. We've turned it into something beautiful. Not a house for one lonely widow, but a home for 2 sisters who chose each other. Every morning I make coffee and sit on the porch Robert built with his own hands. I watch the neighborhood wake up. Kids walking to school, people heading to work. Life continuing in all its messy, beautiful complexity. I retired from the hospital last year. 42 years of cleaning floors. 42 years of hard work that bought me freedom. The rental properties still generate income, enough to support Stella and me comfortably, with plenty left over to fund the scholarship trust. Last year, we added 4 more scholarships. Next year, we're hoping for 6. I haven't seen Terrence since that morning 2 years ago. He sends an email every few months, updates about Jordan, about the new baby, a girl named Grace, about the job he finally found in Charlotte, making half what he used to make. He's paying off the debt slowly. Sienna went back to work part-time. They're surviving. He always ends the emails the same way. "I'm sorry, Mom. I love you. I'm trying to be better. I never respond. Maybe someday I will. Maybe someday the wound will heal enough that I can have a relationship with him again. But not yet. Not while the trust is still so broken. But Jordan, I send Jordan $200 every month. Into a savings account Terrence doesn't know about. Into a future that boy will discover when he turns 18. By then, he'll have $43,000 for college. And he'll have a letter from me explaining where it came from, and why, and what it means to truly love someone enough to protect them, even when their parents won't." The scholarship ceremony happens every September now. Last month was the 3rd annual. 28 students total have received funding. 28 futures changed. 28 young people who call me Grandma and actually mean it. At this year's ceremony, a young man named Christopher stood up to speak. He was one of the first 12 recipients, now finishing his junior year in electrical engineering. 2 years ago, he said, his voice shaking slightly, "I didn't think I'd ever go to college. My parents died when I was 16. I was living with my aunt, working at McDonald's, trying to save money that disappeared as fast as I made it. When I got the letter about this scholarship, I thought it was a scam. Nobody gives away that kind of money to a kid like me." He looked directly at me. "But Mrs. Washington did. She didn't know me. She'd never met me. But she believed in me anyway. And because of that, I'm going to be the first person in my family to graduate from college. I'm going to be an engineer, just like her late husband. And someday, when I've built my career and my life, I'm going to create a scholarship too. Because that's what you do when someone gives you a chance. You pass it on. The room exploded in applause. I cried. Happy tears, grateful tears, tears of knowing that this was what legacy looked like. Not money passed to ungrateful children, not wealth hoarded and fought over, but opportunity given freely, hope planted in fertile soil, love multiplied instead of diminished. After the ceremony, I went home with Stella. We made dinner together. Nothing fancy, just chicken and vegetables and cornbread like my mother used to make. We ate on the porch as the sun set, talking about everything and nothing. "Do you ever regret it?" Stella asked. "Cutting Terrence off the way you did?" I thought about that question, really thought about it. "No," I said finally. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my son chose money over me. I regret that Jordan and Grace will grow up with a grandmother who keeps her distance because their parents can't be trusted. But I don't regret protecting myself. I don't regret setting boundaries. And I don't regret using my money to build something meaningful instead of just passing it to someone who'd waste it." "You built something beautiful, Lorraine." "We built it," I corrected. "You, me, Robert. Even Terrence, in a weird way. He taught me what matters and what doesn't." That night I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and wrote a letter. Not to Terrence, not to Jordan, but to the future, to whoever might read this story someday and find themselves in a similar place. Dear friend, if you're reading this, you might be facing a choice I once faced. Someone you love, maybe your child, maybe another family member, is trying to take from you. Not borrow, not ask. Take. And you're wondering, am I being selfish by saying no? Am I being cruel by protecting what I've built? Am I destroying my family by setting boundaries? Let me tell you what I learned. Saying no isn't selfish. It's self-respect. Protecting yourself isn't cruel. It's necessary. And if your family falls apart because you won't let them exploit you, then it wasn't a real family to begin with. It was a transaction. My son wanted my money to fund his lifestyle. He wanted inheritance before death. He wanted reward without gratitude. And when I said no, he called me controlling, selfish, cruel. But I wasn't any of those things. I was just a woman who finally understood her own worth. So I took the money he tried to steal, and I used it to build futures for children who understand the value of sacrifice. I created a legacy that will outlive me by generations. I turned pain into purpose. That's not revenge. That's transformation. If you're facing this choice, if someone you love is treating you like an ATM instead of a person, know this. You have the right to say no. You have the right to protect what you've built. You have the right to create a legacy that reflects your values, not someone else's greed. And when you make that choice, some people will call you selfish. They'll say family should help family. They'll guilt you and manipulate you and try to make you believe you're the villain. But you're not. You're just someone who finally chose yourself. And that's the bravest thing you can do. I saved the letter in a file labeled Legacy. Someday, maybe someone would read it and find strength in my story. The last thing I did before bed was check my phone. There was an email from the Community Foundation. Mrs. Washington, we wanted to let you know that one of your scholarship recipients, Maya Johnson, just won a national engineering competition for her prosthetic limb design. She credits your scholarship with making it possible for her to pursue her dream. She's been offered early admission to MIT's graduate program with full funding. Congratulations on changing another life. I read the email 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Maya would change the world. Christopher would too. And so would all the others. That was my legacy. Not the money, not the properties, not even the scholarship fund itself. My legacy was the lives those young people would touch, the innovations they'd create, the families they'd support, the children they'd inspire. Robert would have been so proud. I put my phone down, turned off the light, and went to sleep with a smile on my face. Because I'd learned the most important lesson of all. The people who really love you don't ask, "How much will you leave me?" They ask, "How can I make you proud?" And the ones who can't tell the difference don't deserve your legacy anyway. They wanted my money to fund their lifestyle. Instead, I used it to build futures for children who understand the value of sacrifice. That's not revenge. That's legacy. My son took everything I gave him for granted. Now, 28 strangers call me Grandma, and mean it. That's not loss. That's love. And in the end, love is the only inheritance that really matters.